Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios here in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with our news. You stay with us. We begin talking about Ecuador because the first death related to the ongoing nationwide protest has been confirmed. The provincial government of Azuay has confirmed that Raúl Chipe was run over by a vehicle around noon on Sunday while participating in the indigenous blockade on a highway between the cities of Cuenca and Guayaquil. According to authorities, the incident happened after a vehicle tried to force its way through the blockade, hitting several protesters on its way. And the nationwide protest against the recently announced austerity measures in Ecuador has entered to its fifth day following violent repression from security forces. The National Indigenous Organization has also declared a state of exception. 1,000 continue marching to Quito. In a statement, CONAIE said that the state of exception is a response to violent attacks from police and military forces carried out against indigenous protesters. It covers indigenous territories, and any military or police officer who enters without an authorization will be detained. A military unit in the Chimborazo province and another in the Cotopaxi province have already been detained. Meanwhile, a total blockade of roads have been reported in provinces with the largest percentage of indigenous population, such as Cotopaxi, Imbabura, and Chimborazo.
We are the ones who are losing with this crisis, with this rise that the nefarious government has done. We do not agree with it. Until they repeal it, we will have to take these measures, and we will go to the last consequences.
And indigenous delegations from several pan-Amazonian countries have gathered in Rome ahead of a synod on the Amazon by Pope Francis. Indigenous leaders held a conference in Rome titled Voices of the Amazon, Land, People and Religions, to warn the world about the threats that government of Jair Bolsonaro poses both to indigenous peoples and the environment. The synod will see bishops from 9 pan-Amazonian countries discussing the social injustice and crimes indigenous people are facing in Latin America.
When peoples and cultures are at war without love and without respect, it is not God's fire but that of the world. Yet, how many times has God given being imposed, not offered? How many times has there been colonialism, the fire set by interest that destroy, like the fire that recently devastated Amazon? It's not the fire of the gospel. The fire of God is warmth that attracts and gathers into unity. It is fed by sharing, not by profits. The fire that destroys, on the other hand, blazes up when people want to promote only their own ideas from their own groups, wipe out differences in the attempt to make everyone and everything uniform.
And we move on to other topics. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov met Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro to deepen bilateral relations, especially in the oil, agriculture and military sectors.
We have reviewed all the issues, and we can say there are new economic ventures with technology sharing, participation of Russian companies in all areas of the strategic production of the country. We have renewed and advanced tremendously throughout the oil, gas, and basic businesses.
Time for a first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account, as you are seeing it, at Laura P. Telesur. You stay with us. We are back with the news. Relations have been strained between South Africa and Nigeria. After the recent xenophobic attacks, the reprisals from Nigeria didn't make it any better. The recent state visit by Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari to South Africa has helped set the record straight, but both countries already have connections that won't be broken even by violence. Matua Malaji explores what South Africans love about Nigeria.
Leaders of Africa's top economies say they want to work together to end xenophobic violence that almost derailed the ties between the two nations. But South Africa and Nigeria have been speaking the universal language to each other, even amid the tensions we've seen in recent days. Music produced in Nigeria has had a major impact on South Africa's music playlists.
So we are here in Garankuwa, where we've seen shops owned by migrants being targeted during the xenophobic violence. But we're here for a different reason now, to find out why local people love Nigerian music. And I've got my dancing shoes on. Let's go.
DJ Percy Sledge is the morning drive show host for the local radio station with a big following from young people.
As radio presenters and also artists to make sure we unite Africans, the music, the kind of music that we play on air, and also making sure whenever leaders also like the xenophobic attacks, we condemn such things on air.
A few kilometers away from Garankuwa, there is another township, Soshanguve. Reports of xenophobia have been reported here too. Popular DJ who goes by the name of DJ Madness says sometimes it's not xenophobia.
It's more of ignorance than xenophobia, in my opinion. You know, people are very misinformed. I think the problem is that there's too much fake news. You know, social media is contributing to that. Things go viral, things get out of hand, things get blown out of proportion, you know.
Xenophobia is undisputed and it's happening in South Africa, but why do we love Nigerian music so much?
Their dance hall, man, it has that thing, man, you know, especially at their accent, the way they pronounce words, you know. So yeah, man, it has that thing, man, which makes us fall in love with them and also their music.
In the last 3 years, I'd say they're responding well to Davido and as well as Burna Boy. But what I've also noticed is that they also respond to the collaborations that we have with them. For example, the biggest song by AKA Fela and Versace, it was very huge, and because it had the Nigerian influence, you know what I mean?
While the political leadership is important in restoring stability, it's also important to put the finger on the pulse of what ordinary people feel at the worst of times. Matiba Mahlachi for Telesur in Soshanguve, South Africa.
Interesting story. Now we move on to other informations because voting has also grabbed up in Kosovo for the fourth parliamentary elections since the country declared its independence from Serbia in 2008. The elections were called after Prime Minister Ramush Haradinaj resigned in the month of July over war crime allegations. The new leadership will be expected to broker peace deal with Serbia, which still rejects the independence of its former province but thus blocks Kosovo's United Nations application. According to preliminary results based on 82% of the votes counted, Vetevendokhe self-determination won 26% of the vote, while other opposition party, the Center-Right Democratic League of Kosovo, LDK, won 25% of the vote. United States and the European Union see tensions between Belgrade and Pristina as a major threat to regional stability and are pushing for normalization of relations.
With us in power, there will be no thieves in the government. There will be no thieves in state institutions. In line with the rule of our law, thieves will be fought, investigated, persecuted, and punished in our society wherever they are.
For tonight, I believe you agree that the winner cannot be declared yet. We have to wait until every last vote is counted.
And according to provisional results in Portugal, the Socialist Party candidate Antonio Costa has won legislative elections held this Sunday. The Socialist Party, led by the current Prime Minister Antonio Costa, won the election with 38% of the vote. According to the first results, the leader of the opposition, Rui Rio, came in second place with 33% of the votes. The other partner coalitions, the Left Bloc and the Coalition of Communists and Environmentalists, TS-CTU, have won 6.81% and 4.59% of the votes in these elections, respectively. It should be noted that there was a large absentation of more than 44% of the 10 million Portuguese eligible to vote. The day ended with the closure of more than 6,000 polling stations in the middle of an electoral process that developed without incidents. The re-elected Prime Minister, Antonio Costa, urged the country's political actors to work in order to increase voter turnout in the upcoming elections.
The high rate of abstention beyond technical issues must be a matter of concern for all policy makers. Democracy is strained on an election day, and this must be a right exercised by all with conviction and will. That is why I asked all involved to work to reduce abstention in the upcoming elections.
And elections also took place in Tunisia, where polling stations closed after parliamentary elections were held. According to election observers, the turnout was generally low, though the election was considered peaceful. More than 1,500 lists and 15,000 candidates were running for over 20 seats. The elections came weeks after the first round of presidential elections, where two independent candidates gathered most of the votes. The presidential runoff vote will take place this October 13th.
Compared to the first results of the presidential elections, we feel that there is the same trend. We feel that there is a wind of change in this country.
Meanwhile, the wife of jailed Tunisian presidential candidate Nabil Garkou has called for the release of her husband ahead of the runoff vote this Sunday. Karoui was arrested in August for tax fraud and money laundering charges, but was allowed to continue with his candidacy.
We are still proceeding with the elections and the democratic process, but I'm very sad because these elections passed with great sorrow for me, my husband, and for his party. There was no fairness in opportunity and participation, so it is really a very sad day for Tunisia.
And 10 people have been injured after a grenade exploded in Kashmir's southern city of Anantnag. The blast is reported to have taken place near a government's office. This is the first attack to take place at a government building since India's crackdown on the region. People in Kashmir have been protesting since India stripped the Muslim-majority region of its autonomy in early August. Kashmir is divided by India and Pakistan, who both claim the territory.
Today around 10:30 in the morning, terrorists lobbed a grenade in the Lal Chowk area of Anantnag city, which is a very busy area, due to which 10 people got injured, of which 1 is a constable of traffic police and 9 are civilians.
Time for a second and very short break. We'll be right back.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values, passion, and more. Real life. Fridays, only on Tourist World.
We are back with the news, and we start in the Caribbean because there were several reports of injuries during the opening day of primary elections in the Dominican Republic, in which the Dominican Liberation Party and the Modern Revolutionary Party will choose their candidates ahead of presidential elections scheduled for next year. Authorities have said that following a series of incidents this Sunday, a number of people suffered injuries of varying degrees of gravity. The president of the Central Election Board, Cesar Castaños, said that the incidents were totally removed from the electoral process in the country. Castaños went on to guarantee the security of the 7 million citizens expected to vote after the deployment of 48,000 officers pertaining to the security of forces.
As a result of the number of voters, there was a disorder in the electoral census, but we believe that it is a result of a new voting process.
Now we go straight to the Caribbean, to our correspondent in the Dominican Republic, Daisy Toussaint. She has the details for us about these primary elections. Welcome, Daisy. Tell us.
Dominicans have been realizing their rights in the first simultaneous primary elections with an automating voting, in which 7.4 million people could vote to choose candidates for the two top political parties in the country in the elections scheduled for May 2020. The Central Election Board said that after the end of voting, the counting will immediately begin, and the counting will be immediately emerging in bulletins. The figure given will be provisional, and the election body has, by law, 5 days before it has released official results. International and national organizations are watching the voting. 7,372 voting machines were installed in the 3,890 polling stations in 250 towns across the country, with more than 115,000 people working in there. Among those working are presidents, secretaries, military officials, technicians, and supervisions. It's important to remember that these elections are taking place to decide the candidates for the country's biggest party, the Modern Revolutionary Party, who are using a closed primary model, meaning only members of the party are permitted to vote, and the Dominican Liberation Party, the party current in government, who are using an open model, meaning everyone can vote in their primary.
Thank you, Daisy. And now we move on to other topics. 5 days of clashes between Iraqi police forces and protesters have claimed over 100 lives and left more than 6,000 wounded. The Iraq government faces one of its biggest challenges since it took power a year ago, as protesters continue to express public anger over corruption and unemployment. The oil-producing country has struggled to rebuild after the invasion by United States-led coalition that overthrew the government of Saddam Hussein in 2003.
We will start with the statistics. These statistics are accurate and in coordination with the Ministry of Health, which were communicating with us throughout. The number of injured is 6,107, and the number of martyrs, 104. These numbers include security forces, civilians, and protesters.
And demonstrators have rallied in Yemen's port city of Hodeidah to protest against the Saudi-led blockade. Protesters gather outside the United Nations headquarters, waving Yemeni flags and chanting anti-Saudi slogans. The Saudi-led coalition reportedly seized ships carrying oil, food aid, and medical supplies heading to Houthi-controlled territory. The standoff between the two sides worsened following drone attacks on Saudi oil facilities in the month of September, which led coalition forces launching a military operation north of Hodeidah. And before we end, we have information under development, because as we started talking about what is happening in Ecuador after the tariffs, the shortening of the economy that President Lenin Moreno announced, because this Sunday night social media users have been sharing videos of military-grade tanks rolling into the Ecuadorian capital, Quito, as night falls on the city. The tanks are set to surround the seat of the central government, the presidential palace in Quito's historic center, Palace of Carondelet. Speaking on Sunday night, the country's defense minister Oswaldo Jarrín warned people not to provoke the armed forces. United Nations Human Rights Office for South America has expressed its concern about the use of force on protesters. These images are under development in Ecuador. We invite you to follow us on our social media and on our website to keep updated of what is happening in Ecuador, and of course follow our screens. Like this, we come to the end of this brief. But of course, as I was telling you, keep it yourself informed and visit our website, telesterenglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and of course, follow the information that is coming out from Ecuador and these shorts that are taking place there after President Lenin Moreno announced cuts to the economic budget. Like this, we come to the end of this brief. Keep informed with us. Keep informed with us always, and remember to continue with us with Telesur, connecting our global thought. Until next time, thank you for watching.